One, two, one, two. My brothers. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is the Real Wise OG, known in the hood for short as simply the Wise OG. And I tell you something, family. I am so happy to be here on the live. You know, people get so caught up with what they hear on social media. This is AI slop, AI is taking over, AI is the worst thing in the world. And you know what? There's validity to some of that. But I don't want people thinking that just because I got a fictitious character, that the character's fictitious, but I'm not. The person that made up the character, and that's the voice of the character that writes the scripts, that has lived the background and had the experience and education from which the Wise OG speaks. I'm the Wise OG. The fictional character is the vehicle I use to get the message out, but don't get it twisted, like because the character is fictitious that I'm fictitious. So I'm gonna start doing some lives so that we clarify that, to make sure that people know there's a real man behind this fictitious man, this character called the Real Wise OG. And so that's very important. Now, tonight, we're talking about this very important topic that has to do with these men who argue way too much. I mean, really, really way too much. And this is important because, let me first just say in my life, when I was younger, I was more argumentative myself. Younger, you kind of insecure, you're trying to find yourself, you got stuff to prove, you want to impress people with your knowledge, you want to show that you know a little more in this area. I think that's pretty common for young men. But I'm now almost 60 years old, family. So me to be acting the same way I acted at 18, 19, and 20 would be a problem. I'm sure you would agree. So we're going to get into it today. What's up, my brothers? This is the Real Wise OG. In case you didn't know, this channel discusses wisdom, discipline, emotional intelligence, and helping men grow stronger in tangible ways, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to some degree financially and socially. Now, I want to start this off with a question, my brothers. And if you're listening live, let somebody else know. Don't share all this goodness. Don't keep it all to yourself. Share it with somebody else. I have a question for you, my brothers. Have you ever met a man who argues about everything, no matter what the topic is? He got to challenge you, and it's ugly. I don't mean somebody that says, well, I don't know if I see that way, or, I don't mean like that. This is somebody that has to debate everything, always has to prove you or somebody wrong. And he won't argue quickly. He wants to argue all damn day, all night, over something that is so silly and ridiculous. You say the sky is blue and the sun is hot and water is wet, and somehow this man turns that into an hour-long, bitter argument. After a while, being around people like that, men like that, becomes exhausting. So tonight's conversation matters because we're living in a time where people are addicted to conflict. Social media has normalized combativeness. Everybody wants to debate. Everybody wants to quote unquote destroy somebody in a conversation. And some men have taken that social media energy and projected it into real life. So now every minor disagreement becomes this huge personal problem. Every discussion becomes ego driven. And here's the problem with this. These emotionally undisciplined and reactive men mistake aggression for masculinity. And they give masculinity a bad name. That's why so many people running around now talking about toxic masculinity, almost to the point where men are almost identified as being toxic, right? Without understanding, no, some men are toxic, but not all men. And even some of the men that are toxic are working on combating their toxicity. That's important. But emotional discipline is one of the highest forms of masculinity that you can have. Think about this for a minute, family. Anybody could yell, talk over you, interrupt what you're saying, get defensive or attack you verbally. But can you stay calm when challenged? Can you disagree without name calling, people threatening their life? Right? And do so respectfully? Can you control yourself when your ego is feeling triggered by somebody? And to me, that's the real definition or measurement of masculinity and maturity, right? Now let's talk about why some men, the type of men I'm talking about. Now let's talk about why some men, the type of men I'm talking about, are so argumentative. Now hold on one second, because I'm hearing that my audio I'm hearing is not good. According to what I see here, it is. I'm gonna turn my mic up. So let's see if that helps out. All right. So this is why some men are argumentative. Every behavior has a root. It comes from something, and a lot of argumentative behavior typically comes from insecurity. Secure men who are level-headed, who know that they're not perfect and got some flaws, they don't feel a constant need to argue with people. People who have accomplishments, know what they've done in the past, know they're smart, know they're capable, they don't have to prove it to anybody, right? But these are argumentative men. For some reason, they always got to get the final word. They don't know how to just be quiet, right? And you might be wondering, well, why do these people have a need to attack people? And it's because many of these argumentative types tie their self-worth to being right and to appearing more intelligent than everyone around them. They see themselves as the self-appointed idea police, correcting everybody else, but never stopping to correct themselves. So you say, I like this restaurant. And now that becomes a half an hour argument. This is ridiculous. You say, I like that movie. And now they're taking a whole hour arguing with you, yelling and calling your names to say how you're wrong. Some men are addicted to correction, correcting other people, talking over other people. I guess it temporarily feeds their ego. And social media has made this worse. People are spending hours upon hours arguing with strangers, people they don't even know, trying to embarrass other people, chasing this intellectual superiority for likes and attention. And eventually, like I said earlier, some men take that social media energy, that argumentative energy, that controversial, sensational energy, and they try to pull that into their real life. But understand this, family. Intelligence is not measured by how loud you are. Intelligence is not measured by how argumentative you are. Emotionally intelligent people avoid unnecessary arguments. Wise men sidestep. They'll tell you in a minute, I don't have time for that, man. I say that I had to say, I'm not going to keep arguing with you for the rest of the night. It's ridiculous, right? But emotionally immature men waste time and energy trying to verbally dominate or come off as superior to people around them. Again, wise men have a purpose in their life. They're not just drift around like feathers in the wind with nothing to do. They have schedules for their day. They're trying to get stuff done by certain times of the day, the month, or the year. Therefore, they say, time is like money. If you have $100 and you spend $80 over there, that means you only got $20 to spend over here. It's the same with time. You got 24 hours in a day. You waste 18 hours gossiping, talking on the phone, playing games, laying around doing nothing, right? Now, you got very few hours of the day left, right? So wise brothers that are purposeful and empowered, they plan their day. They're not going to sit and argue with you about something silly for an hour when they know that hour could be spent studying, chilling with their loved ones, reading, resting, or working on their project. right? So this is very important for us to understand. The other thing to understand is that some of these argumentative type of men, they argue constantly because deep down inside they're not at peace, right? So when a man is always frustrated, insecure, bitter, emotionally unstable, that energy inside of them spills into their conversations and relationships outside of them. Everything becomes confrontational, right? Because some of these dudes are walking around carrying stress, resentment, and unresolved anger. And instead of addressing it, they project it outward, right? So conversations for them become almost like these emotional dumping grounds for other people. And here's something many men overlook. Constantly arguing with people unnecessarily destroys your nervous system. I don't know if you're aware that when you get really upset and emotional, your brain communicates with your glands and puts you in what they call fight or flight mode, right? And what that means, hold on, family. And what that means is it secretes these hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. And all of a sudden, these hormones are for you to fight or run away from danger. So it gives you more perception, more awareness, more energy, and a little more strength, which is good for if a lion is chasing you or somebody running after you with a gun. But when you're living a normal life and you're just getting upset all the time and this adrenaline and cortisol is flowing through your body and there's no real emergency, you know what happens? That stuff builds up in your body. Next thing you know, you got heart issues, breathing issues, all cholesterol, clogged up arteries, right? So what I'm also telling you is that when you're angry like that a lot, that not only can affect your health, but it will affect your health. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. I know all about it, right? So it's very important we understand that not only is this whack, not only is this weak, not only is it unmanly to be overly argumentative, that stuff can kill you. That stuff can create a level of stress and anxiety in your body that will have you have strokes and heart attacks and all types of craziness. We have to heal from that, family. All men that's listening, you got to heal from that. If you identify that in yourself or people you love, brothers you love, you got to tell them, man, you get upset too much, man. That's going to kill you. And trust me, it has killed millions of black men. We're amongst the group that dies at the youngest ages on this planet, black men. I don't know if you knew that. And it's because we carry a lot of bitterness and anger, and many times for good reasons. But whether the reason is valid or not, there's no use of us dying prematurely because we're so upset. Right? Now, this is the other real cost of being overly argumentative. It's not just that it hurts you physically. You know, argumentative dudes push people away. And this doesn't happen immediately, but kind of over time, gradually. Friends stop calling you, inviting you out. Women stop returning your calls. The sister you trying to get with, she don't want to talk to you. Family members keep their conversation short with you. Your coworkers try to avoid you. Why? Because they don't want to be around people they're always fighting with. And many argumentative men don't really factor this in. They don't process this because you telling yourself, oh man, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just being honest. Brother, stop. People don't avoid you because of your honesty. They avoid you because you're exhausting, draining, and annoying. And what human beings naturally do is they move towards safety. They move away from people and things that drain them and make them feel bad, unless they're the weirdo type that like pain. Most people who are rational don't like pain, don't like being annoyed, right? So if every interaction with you feels like a conflict or a problem or a catastrophe, people reduce their access to you. More and more, they become less and less accessible. And nobody wants to have to mentally prepare, pray, and meditate and do it before speaking with you. That's not normal and it's not healthy. And I should say this. It's also, well, let me skip that. Another thing I think is important for us to understand is that being calm and cool and collected, especially under pressure, is part of what masculinity should be, healthy masculinity. I witnessed this firsthand as a teenager growing up in Harlem in the 80s. I noticed, I really observed men. I observed the older dudes, the street dudes with the reputations. I observed the dudes like myself that was more like kind of going to school, playing sports, and staying out of trouble for the most part. I observed people. And what I noticed was that the overly argumentative types, the types that were always in the center of some beef or controversy, tended to get punched in the face, locked up, or buried 6 feet under. And I noticed really young that the men that I gravitated to, the older brothers I wanted to listen to and be like, the ones I respected, you almost never caught them yelling and arguing in the street, disrespecting women, yelling them, calling out their name and other dudes. And part of that is probably because of they had a code that they lived by, right? One of those codes was to be careful with your words, be careful what you say, because those words can have real consequences. And some of these guys being in the street know that the street code, it can be very unforgiving. So they were leery, they were hesitant to just say and do whatever they wanted because they knew there's consequences. When I do this, there will be consequences for that action that I have to deal with. Matter of fact, I want to give you a story since y'all think this is AI and fake. It's a true life story. I'm going to change the names, but it's a real story about, I'm going to say maybe 30 years ago or more. Or maybe less than 30 years. Me and two of my neighborhood friends, dudes I grew up with, had a few drinks in a local bar. I'm gonna call the one that was argumentative Lou, and I'm gonna call the one that was cool and calm Clark. Right after we had these few drinks, we went over to one of my friends, one of their buildings where they lived, and we stood in front of the building. It was like a summer night. It was a little late. It was nice and comfortable outside, and you're just chilling out, talking. Now, my friends went and got a little high and indulged in some other type of, we'll say, substances, and came back. And before long, the two of them got into kind of this small disagreement. And if it's been a long time, I want to say it was about sports. I don't even remember exactly. I think it was about the Knicks. It was a little disagreement, and before you know it, it escalated. Now, my friend Lex started yelling, raising his voice, getting all up in Clark's personal space in his face, throwing insults, and even kind of making threats like he wanted to fight. Meanwhile, my man Clark was calm and cool. And what he basically was saying in a low voice, he didn't raise his voice. He basically said, "You blowing my high, bro. It ain't that serious. Be cool. Be cool." Right? And when this happened 2 or 3 times, my man Clark said, "I'm out. I'm out of here. I don't go back and forth with men over silly stuff like that." And then he said to my boy, he said, "I can tell you weren't raised by a real man or a wise man, because a real man would have taught you how to speak to men, and that there's consequences for speaking to men and treating men disrespectfully, particularly when they don't deserve it. Learn how to chill out, man." He turned to me, dapped me up, gave me, high five, whatever, and he bounced. Now, about a day or two later, I run into another friend that all of us knew each other from the hood, and he pulled me aside. He's like, "Yo, what happened with Clark and Lou?" And I kind of got into telling him. He said, "Well, Clark came to me. Clark was the cool one. Clark came to him and said, 'Yo, this dude Lou, man, think about doing something to this dude. You know, and so I said, not Clark, because I always knew Clark. He was quiet, he was smooth, he was cool. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a loud, braggadocious type. So I said, nah, Clark wouldn't say nothing like that. He said, bro, you don't know who Clark is? Clark puts in work, and that was his way. I want to be somewhat, have some discretion, but it was his way of saying Clark puts dudes down, if you know what I mean. Right? He said, and I never knew that, but he said, yeah, man. He said, you better talk to Lou and tell him to chill out. Right? But here's the point. Nothing happened to Lou, thank God. Clark didn't do nothing to him. But here's the point. The lesson is clear. A man who don't watch his mouth, who's overly argumentative, who can't control his emotions, can eventually, those emotions can get him in some big trouble that he's not prepared to deal with. You never know who you're talking to. And you got some of these dudes, they talking to people running off at the mouth, talking all this smack, raising their voice, interrupting, calling out people out their name, challenging their intelligence. And they don't know who they're talking to. They might be talking to a dude that will lay them down, if you know what I mean. It's just not good. And even if it's not a potential for physical violence, it's just the fact that you burn bridges. You end friendships, you damage relationships, you burn, you just burn bridges in a way that's really dumb. Because you're overly emotional. Now notice, while my one friend Lou is talking, insulting, getting all up in my man's face, my man just say, oh, back up. Very cool and calm, said, you can say what you got to say, but you got to back up, bro. You can't be in my face, which Lou did. He backed up. He said, bring that volume down, man. We talking. We men. Well, I don't know what you coming with all this insulting. Just say what you got to say. Be cool. He was calm. He was patient. He was clear-minded. That's the difference. And what I want to suggest is some of us grew up in neighborhoods where my man Lou, the way he was acting, was seen as the manly way to act. And if you were taught that in your hood, as I had some elements of my hood that were teaching that, that's bad teaching. Because it's that very thinking that led some of our people to participate in behavior that got them locked up, that got them put 6 feet under, right, and got them hurt in serious ways. Calm men, masculinity, we have to start redefining it. It's not manly to go out here running your mouth all loud, challenging people for no reason, starting fights, creating problems where there are none. Men are supposed to come into a chaotic situation and bring peace. That's important. And that's why, if you think about it, men who are emotionally disciplined, who know how to be calm, how to calm down, who aren't quick to want to fight and yell and argue, those men typically become better leaders, fathers, husbands, mentors, and business people. Why? Because you got to be emotionally stable at some point to manage these type of affairs. I don't mean romantic affairs. I mean events, things in your life, right? You have to have some stability. You have to be able to form and maintain relationships. People have to feel safe around you, and people don't feel safe around men that fly off the handle for anything, right? Another thing that's important to understand is this idea of the skill of listening to people. We may not think of masculinity and associate it with listening, but I'm going to challenge you on it. I'm going to say it's masculine and manly to listen to people. That don't mean you got to accept if they're talking some BS or something that's offensive or factually wrong. That don't mean you got to sit there and listen to it. You can say, no disrespect, that's not true. I don't know what you got, Jeff, that's not true. But it's saying that when someone's talking, you're listening to understand what they're trying to say. Not just waiting for your chance to respond. Not just waiting for your chance to shut them down. If you actually are listening to understand. And what I find, and I struggle with this sometimes, I find that most people today don't listen to understand. They're waiting for their chance to chime in. So that's why conversations don't tend to go well because you saying something that the person just said and you don't know they just said it because you wasn't listening to them. Some of y'all think y'all got a disagreement when y'all really agreed, but you're not listening to what the person said. So you don't know that you actually are in agreement. So now you're ready to fight for no reason. You got to listen. Mature men know that you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And the old folks used to say that's God's way of teaching you to listen twice as much as you talk, right? That you learn through listening. If you're talking all the time, what are you learning? You're just running your mouth. You may be teaching somebody something, but what are you learning? To learn requires that you listen, observe, right? And take note of what is going on around you. When you read a book, even if you don't read out loud, what's happening? You're listening to yourself in your mind say those words. You're listening. And that's how you learn, right? The wise men know that. So I want you to think about the wisest, calmest, coolest, most patient and disciplined men you've known in your life. You didn't find a lot of them arguing with 10, 20, 30 different people in a given week. Almost every day they had an argument with somebody. No. They were composed, they were measured, they were intentional. And when they spoke, because they wasn't running their mouth all the time, all day, and because when they spoke, they had something to actually say of importance, people listened because their words carried weight. Disciplined men don't seek attention through conflict. In fact, disciplined men don't seek attention at all, but attention gravitates to them because they got something of importance to say, and it's the way they carry themselves. A calm presence carries power, and people feel that, and they find that attractive. Social media, I want to get back to this, has made this whole thing worse, my brothers. You know, they got this thing called the algorithm. This algorithm is some computer-based equation that measures how hot your topics are, how relevant your videos are, how many people like what you say, how long people stay and watch your video. They got it all broken down. And take like YouTube, where we're on now. YouTube algorithms reward drama and division and sensationalism and even completely fake news. I can't tell you how many things I look at. So-and-so actor died. Not true. So-and-so person having life-saving surgery. Not true. Just completely fake stuff. But because people like drama, they go check it out. It's called clickbait. If somebody puts something up that's fake or false to get you to click, right? So people in this type of social media culture have become addicted to this type of emotional stimulation, to conflict, to controversy. Some of them figure, man, I'll go viral. You know, if I'm arguing, if I'm embarrassing people, if I call myself exposing people's dirty laundry, you know, and I think sometimes that some men have internalized this type of behavior, and now they approach normal human interactions like they're on the internet, trying to get views and likes. The problem is that real life doesn't work like a comment section, my brothers. In real life, emotional intelligence does matter. Relationships do matter. The energy and vibration you give off does matter. And some men are so argumentative and they're so blinded by their ego, they don't understand that they're destroying real relationships because they became addicted to debate culture rather than understanding culture. I also want to say everything you think doesn't need to be expressed. Not every disagreement needs to be engaged. Sometimes maturity means saying nothing in response to some knucklehead or egghead trying to get at you or bait you into some argument. Sometimes maturity means, or being a man means, telling somebody, man, I gotta go. I got something to do. I'm not going to continue this with you. Right? Now let's talk about some solutions, because Wise OG don't just like to talk about the problems. We always are solution based here. Self-awareness without self-improvement means nothing. And like I said, years ago, I was guilty, man. I would argue my political points and what I thought about what's going on in the world and spirituality and religion, trying to prove everybody wrong. Sometimes I'd be on Facebook and I'd be going back, leaving these book long posts, going back and forth with people about politics and all that. And man, one day I got into an argument with one of my best friends, brilliant brother, professor, musician, just brilliant. And this is when we were young students. He said, man, you are so smart, you're talented, you're creative. But what you gotta understand, my brother, is that when you're talking to people, the person you're talking to is more important than any point you're trying to make, whether you're right or wrong. And you know what? That deaded the argument because that hit like a ton of bricks. And I'm going to repeat that. The point here is that the person you're talking to is more important than the point you're trying to make. Sometimes we're so busy trying to prove, be a Democrat, be a Republican, be this, be that, think this, think that, that we don't understand that at the end of the day, your idea means nothing if nobody supports you. Your creative, innovative, big idea means nothing if nobody's going to invest in it. It means nothing if nobody will back you up. So really, life is about building these meaningful relationships. And also, I want to say that doesn't mean you got to have no relationship with everybody. Some people you don't rock with, you don't get along, and that's cool. I'm not one of these, you got to like everybody and they got to like you type of dudes, because that ain't no real man either. Real men aren't people pleasers. Real men can get along with anybody, provided that person observes basic protocol. They're not disrespectful, right? Or they're not in violation. But that's important. I want to say that. So here's some solutions real quick. Stop having a need to win every conversation. Stop looking at every conversation as a Olympics or some type of basketball game where you're going to score more points. Ask yourself honestly, am I trying to communicate here? Am I trying to win or dominate? Because conversations are not debates to be won, at least not all the time. Secondly, learn the power of pausing and breathing. When somebody triggers you getting upset, you feeling insulted you, take a deep breath. Or when you're getting ready to insult somebody else, take a deep breath. Let it out. Pause. That small pause and that deep breath creates a little bit of distance and a little bit of emotional control. But not only that, imagine that you're out of your body, looking behind yourself, looking down at yourself and this person in this argument, getting ready to argue. Now you're not the person participating in the argument. You're the person observing the argument, right? And then when you look at yourself, I want you to ask yourself, where is this headed? Am I acting appropriately? If somebody was to see me, if people that I respect and look up to saw me right now, what I'm doing and saying, would they respect me? Would they look down upon me? And just that idea, just that you're observing yourself and asking these questions of yourself, and this takes about 20 seconds, that can change you from being ready to fight and argue and tear somebody down to you saying, man, I'm not going to do this. Listen, man, we disagree and it's all good. Tomorrow's another day, but I'm done with this for now. You see what I mean? As opposed to going forward. Number 3, accept the fact that people disagree. That's part of life, right? Married people that's happily married, or people in a long-term relationship that's happy together, they disagree sometimes. Teammates on a team disagree sometimes. Partners at work disagree sometimes. Business partners disagree. Entire nations disagree sometimes. Go into life thinking that, not everybody's going to share your beliefs, your opinions, your way of looking at the world. That's fine. That's not a problem. Because imagine a world where everybody thought exactly alike and agreed with everything. How boring would that be? How unstimulating would that be? So stop being the self-appointed idea police. Give people the freedom to believe what they want. right? Give people the freedom to see things differently. And understand you don't need everybody on the planet to agree with you to validate your point. You don't need praise or agreement or co-signatures to demonstrate that what you feel is right. You have a right to feel what you feel. Number 4, listen more than you speak. And not only listen, real conversation is not you running your mouth like you're in a monologue by yourself. Ask questions. This is how you always know if somebody is a good conversationalist. They don't just give a bunch of statements. They listen and they ask questions for clarification. When you said that you're an artist, what type of artist are you? I'm curious. Oh, do you have do you have any of your stuff in a gallery? Oh, you're a music artist. Okay, have you recorded any songs? What instruments do you play? How long did it take? You see, that's a conversation, not just a bunch of people talk, just giving statements. Don't you want to know more about what the person is saying? Aren't you curious? And so that's important. Stop immediately thinking you got to correct, to challenge, and give statements. Sometimes you can just listen and you can ask questions to better understand people. Number 5, protect your peace on purpose. Know when some conversations are beneath you. Know when some certain behavior is in violation of your principles. Know when certain people are acting in a way that's beneath you, that are low vibrational. All right. Some people enjoy chaos, and like I've begun to understand, some people actually like to argue. They like that. They get off on it. I don't know why, but that turns them on. That's why one of the reasons they're always arguing. But understand, even if somebody's trying to bait you into an argument, see that early. They putting words in your mouth. They twisting something you didn't say. They taking something more overly serious. You say, no, I'm just being light, man. Be easy, relax. They salty with the tone. Understand, not every invitation to a fight or argument deserves your acceptance. You can simply say, I'm not participating in that. One of the best ways to end an argument is to simply say, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. I got other things to do. And then be quiet, completely quiet. Now, if the other person has some issues, they may talk for 20 minutes to themselves, argue with themselves, but they won't be arguing with you. Why? Because you disengaged from that. Some people try to play that like, oh, that's weak. You don't want to engage. No. I engage in a conversation. I'm not going to engage in what is an argument, because what happens with arguments, for anybody with half a brain knows that they escalate. This person's yelling, saying stuff, you yelling, saying stuff, that escalates. And we also know that when arguments escalate, violence can become part of the picture, or very insulting statements you can't take back become part of the picture. So it's actually wise and intelligent to say, I see where this is going, so I'm going to remove myself from that. They can say whatever they want, but I'm afraid to talk. No, I'm wise and I see where this is going. But what they won't say is I went upside their head. I talked about their mama and I was disrespectful. I'm just going to pull out. Number 6, work on your internal strength, your internal state, man. You know, a lot of these argumentative dudes are internally frustrated, confused. They got all types of confusion issues. And sometimes the issue isn't about communication with other people. Sometimes the issue is deep in the person. They got trauma that they haven't processed. They got unresolved anger. They're really mad at somebody else who did something 30 years ago, 100 years ago. They never addressed it. They may feel deeply small and insecure, unworthy, unaccomplished, right? Or they may be disappointed in themselves. And so that spills out to you and the people they talk to, right? So if any of this applies to you, my brothers, heal. Take some time and say, you know what? Do some inventory of yourself and say, you know, people tell me that I'm always arguing. And people will tell you that. And I want to be clear, because people like to make it seem like everybody's everybody's not the same. Some people argue every day almost. That is unhealthy. Now, some people may argue once a week, once a month, once every 3 months. I mean, an ugly knockout, drag out argument. But if you find yourself, my brothers, listening live or the recorded version of this broadcast, you find yourself arguing a little too much. People say, man, why are you so bitter, bro? Why you take everything all the way to the nth degree? Why are you ready to fight? Why are you calling me out my name? Why are you yelling all the time? You should take note of that. Don't dismiss those statements from people and ask yourself those questions. Like, really, like, what am I upset about? Is there something that I'm feeling? Am I feeling lost, confused, unappreciated? Am I bitter about something that happened to me? You know, do I need to heal? And, you know, these days we have a lot of remedies. We have therapists. Depending on your health insurance, you might be able to get a therapist through your health insurance. You might be able to join the gym. Maybe you need to get to the boxing gym and release some of that that aggression you got. or whatever, do some push-ups. I don't know. But there's even on here on YouTube, there's some people who really study this stuff and they're really good at helping you work through some problems. But don't sit with that level of anger and instability in your life, because guess what? It ain't hurt. It'll hurt it'll hurt other people. But the main person it will destroy is yourself. You have to heal internally, because that inner chaos shows up externally. It's like Lauryn Hill said, how you going to win when you ain't right within? How you going to win when you ain't right within? That's what our ancestors taught, right? Brothers, life becomes so much more liberating, fulfilling, productive, and peaceful when a man learns to discipline himself. When a man learns, I don't got to engage every fight that's coming my way. Listen, I told you I grew up in Harlem, man, in the 80s, man. I had to learn young what things to engage and what things to leave alone. You one of them people, you gotta, somebody ticks you off, you gotta address everybody. You gotta fight everybody. Oh man, you're gonna be fighting every day of your life in this world, family. And some of those fights are not worth your time. And some of those people are not worth your time, right? You're going to be one of these people, everything that comes up on the internet, you upset about, you fighting about. Somebody said something, you heard what somebody said, I want to do that. No. So what? There's no written law in the universe, spiritual or otherwise, that says you have to address every single issue in the world, family. Again, those of us who have purposeful lives, purpose-driven men, have things we trying to do every day. We got a list of 3 things we trying to get done, maybe one thing, and you won't get anything done. You have a bunch of half-done things. You'll be upset. You'll be procrastinating. And part of that is because a lot of your time that could be going into finishing things, moving on new projects, building new networks, travel, is being spent occupying your energy with the foolish, silly, low-level arguments with people who, no matter what you say, they're not going to change. Here's everything. They're not going to change their mind anyway. That's the part I don't think brothers get. And I believe that the scripture, if you're into the Bible, it says Jesus told his flock not to throw precious pearls to swine. Right? He says all they're going to do is trample over you. What the point is that half the people that are so argumentative, they really don't listen to your point of view anyway. So you can tell them, you can curse them out, talk about their mama, threaten to beat them up. Then you're not changing their mind anyway. And now you're getting upset and your blood pressure is going up. And now you in the emergency room with strokes and heart attacks. No, family. No. Take it from Wise OG. I learned the hard way. Let stuff go. Let people think whatever they want. You tell them very good, wise advice. They say, no, they're shooting over there. They're going to run right to the... So no, I wouldn't go there if I was you. They shoot. Oh, no, I want to see. Let them go. What you going to do? Twist their arm? No, I've learned to give people the freedom to exercise their choice. And they got to deal with them consequences. There's a time I said, no, I would go and give all this. And no, you want to do that? Okay, no problem. Because you know what happens? When a decision is unwise, you usually have to undo the decision. When you move impulsively and with haste and you don't take your time to do proper research and thought, the thing you do will always not be adequate, and you'll have to undo it, redo it, spend more money, more time. Anyway, you'll have a bad outcome. And I found that some people, wise people, you can tell them, if I was you, I wouldn't spend all that money. I'd put a little bit in savings, and they'll just say, you know what, you're right. But then there's people who have to get hurt. They got to go through the actual physical pain and suffering to get the lesson. And you know what? Maybe you got to let them. Maybe that's how those people learn, right? Brothers, remember, anybody can argue. Anybody can react in an ugly way. Anybody can get defensive. But we men who are trying to be better, disciplined, productive, build businesses and enterprise, leave legacy here, leave something on this earth that wasn't here, that's helping people in their lives, we have to move differently. We got a higher standard on us, right? A wise man understands being calm is strong. Self-control is masculine. Listening is powerful. Emotional discipline creates respect. A man, on the other hand, who argues about everything is going to damage his relationships, his peace, and his reputation. All over the country, the city, wherever you are, people gonna be like, oh, that dude? Yeah, man, don't work with him. Nah, man, he argues over here. He's a problem, right? He's a problem. I saw a documentary about the Chicago Bulls, and it said that this particular team that went to the Olympics, that they voted not to have Isaiah Thomas on the team. They thought Jordan did it, but he said, I didn't do that. It was a team thing. And it was because they felt that he was argumentative. They felt that he would mess up the chemistry of the team. So this guy, who by all accounts, his statistics earned him a right to be on that Olympic team, didn't get that opportunity because the other players like, nah, man, because he going to come in, he going to be arguing and creating division. We don't want that. This is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Word gets around. It don't matter how talented, how smart you are, how creative you are. People don't want that smoke. They want peace. You understand? They want stability. They want grounded energy, right? So if every interaction with you is feeling draining, people are going to create distance. And that ain't a function of how honest you are. That's a function of how annoying and combative you are. Learn to disagree respectfully. Understand that everybody don't have to agree with you, and be cool with that. You can communicate without letting your ego run the room, right? And I want to make one last point, and we're done, family. Unless there's any questions that I see. Tomorrow, had he lived, would be the 101st birthday of the great Malcolm X. And I want to leave you with a very important lesson that he actually demonstrated that relates to our discussion. In March of 1964, he held a very important press conference, and he announced publicly that he was leaving the organization that he had worked so hard for and within for 13 years, the Nation of Islam, and that he was starting 2 new organizations. But he also did something I have never seen before or since. In a public press conference, he basically said this, I quote, "I'm not out to fight other Negro leaders or organizations. We must find a common approach, a common solution to a common problem. As of this minute, I've forgotten everything bad that the other leaders have said about me. And listen, and I pray they can also forget the many bad things I've said about them. The problem facing our people here in America is bigger than all other personal or organizational differences." Do y'all hear me though? This is a national leader, considered one of our greatest, that's saying in public, when I was saying mean things about Dr. King, calling people Uncle Toms, calling people all these different things, I was wrong to say that. I was wrong. When's the last leader you heard, or president, hint, hint, that you heard that actually said, you know what? When I said that, I was crass and I was disrespectful and I apologize. Because we all make mistakes, but men are going to apologize. They're going to recognize, man, I was out of pocket for that. And when Malcolm X did that, he demonstrated, he didn't talk about it. He demonstrated an important lesson, humility. the ability to say, hey, I was in violation, and that's not the way I want to go out. That's not the way I want to be remembered. That's not the energy I want to put out here in this world. So I'm going to apologize, and I'm going to actually say, hey, I forgive you for people who called me, said bad things about me, and I hope you forgive me. That showed great humility, something that I think we should all as men remember. To me, that is maturity. To me, that is masculinity, and that is masculine wisdom and discipline. And that's what the Real Wise OG channel is all about. So stay grounded, family. Stay disciplined and stay wise. Don't let people get you out of your zone where you're saying and doing things that go against your own principles. That's not cool. So I really do hope that you all are getting that point. I hope that I made the point well, that you all get it. And with that said, now I do see some people out here. I see looks like a lovely woman there, Brenda Hilaire. She says greetings back to you, Queen Brenda. I see Habiba Abdul Shahid says argumentative individuals are going through the same biochemical changes as a person who's having an orgasm. Wow. Okay, hey, now that's different. And that's why they're enjoying it and indulge often. Okay, that's another way of looking. I never really thought of it that way or heard of that before, but that's another way of looking at it. But I hope that as men, this is very important for men. Women, to their credit, have a lot of things they do to get better and to heal. They don't always take advantage of them, but you got women that's in healing circles, sisterhood groups. They go into getting spas and they getting meditation and getting into yoga. They do things to address their mental health. They do things to address the places where they're weak, deficiencies in their character. And if I can be honest, I respect that. I admire that. There's nothing wrong to make mistakes, family. What's wrong is when we act like we're perfect. And even though we hear countless people telling us, yo, that's not cool. You're always threatening people. You're always yelling. You're always doing it. And you just keep doing it. Nah, that's not cool. I respect people who could say, oh man, I'm bad with money. I'm bad with my temper. I'm bad, whatever it is, but I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. You got to respect that. So my brothers, remember, of all the people on this planet, we are some of the people, black men in particular, that die the youngest. Part of that is the way that we approach how we think, how we interact with people, our language, how quick we get upset, how argue. I told you, when you're arguing and bitter, you're going to be in pain. You're going to have strokes and heart attacks. Ask me how I know. I can tell you from experience. You're talking to a man who was filled with some rage and some bitterness and didn't know how to deal with it and had strokes and heart attacks. Family, this is real talk here. You think this is AI? This is a real man talking. The AI guy, the guy I use is just the vehicle I use to get the point across, a fictional character. This is real talk. I'm telling you that if you don't change that bitterness and that argumentative, combative nature, it will kill you. Yeah, I said it. It will kill you. It will rob you of your vitality, your mobility. You don't want that, right? You thinking you hurting somebody else, you hurting you, because all that stuff you're saying, the feelings you feel, it lays right in your body. Your body remembers everything you said and did, and your thoughts, and it stays right in your muscles and your arteries. So, family, I hope that we will all grow together and be better together. I'm going to sign out. This is the Real Wise OG, known in the hood simply as the Wise OG. I thank you for spending some time with me, and I hope that you will subscribe if you haven't already. I hope that you'll go through my catalog of different videos. I got different playlists dealing with all types of stuff, and I hope that you spread the word. We need to grow this channel. I'm trying to reach millions of men, because I know that we need direction, we need guidance, we need a place we can come, and somebody's going to tell us the truth. And they're going to say it to us in a way where we understand it. Sometimes it ain't going to be pleasant, warm and fuzzy, but it'll be the truth, because I care. Excuse me, I had a little bit of cold I'm getting over. I care about the status of men in this world. And I want us to get back on our throne. And by that, I mean, I want us to act like men, have a code, be respectful, be on time, take care of business, master your craft, educate yourself, learn a skill or trade, and form relationships and build networks and leave something on this earth that will better the world and at least your family and community. That's what, to me, empowered men do, just like empowered women. And the better we are, men, your relationships will slowly get better. Businesses will start to thrive. Your health will improve. And what I'm telling you in this channel is not just how to get paid, how to make women like you. I do have videos that deal with how to have a perfect date and things that women are attracted to. But the dominant theme here is you. It's not chasing women and chasing this and that. It's chasing you and making you the best you. Because when you do that, guess what happens? Something magical happens. You attract that woman you're looking for. You attract that job that's your dream job. You attract being in the right places at the right times with the right people to hear your idea and even fund your idea. Ask me how I know that. So, family, thank you. I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to relax and enjoy the rest of this evening. Y'all take care. Make sure that you watch. On Sundays, I'll have a longer video. On Wednesdays, I'll have a short video that relates to the longer video. And I'm starting to think that on Monday evenings, at least every other Monday evening, I'll have a live like this. This is important because I want you to know I'm a real man. I'm not the character I use is a fictional character, but I'm a real man. And I want y'all to know that and hear my voice. With that said, family, have a beautiful evening. Take care now. Peace.